Confession. I tried to rob my company, and it didn't really work out. My so-called friends have been telling me I should finally post online what I've only orally passed on until now. I think it might actually help me to get my story out there. I'm interested to hear if anyone else has had something similar happen to them. Probably not very similar, at least not how it all started for me. But let's just say, I made my mistakes, paid my debt to society, and now I've been struggling to get my life back together. Okay, you probably need more detail than that. Due to an NDA I signed, I can't mention the name of the company I used to work for or exactly what I did, but just know that I worked in an office, sitting down all day in front of a computer. I was happy enough at the job, but the pay was kind of low. At least it was compared to what my clients were pulling in. My job allowed me to peek at their finances, and I found myself daydreaming often about living their kind of life. Eventually, I got jealous enough to do something about it. Our company had a backup server that kept every shred of important data from the company's inception. It had been the latest technology when our boss had first bought it, but we were going to switch to the cloud eventually. I decided to take advantage of all that information while I still had it so close by. Once I resolved to steal it, I immediately set about making the perfect plan to do so. I started going to the gym and lifting lots of weights with just my right arm. I carried my gym bag into work with me and told my coworkers I was starting to get into running again. My gym bag always looked full, and I had a lot of coworkers who would ask if I needed any help with it. I would throw it at them so they could see how light it really was with just a change of clothes inside. I joined several online forums and set up a buyer for all that information so I could immediately profit. I asked for $2 million. The server wasn't connected to the internet, so having someone on the inside was the only chance at our data. The buyers were only too happy to agree to my demands. They agreed to help me copy the data so I could potentially return the drive without anyone being aware it was ever stolen. To help with that, I decided to steal the server on the Friday of a long weekend. On the day, I came in with my gym bag and swung it around easily as I greeted the lobby security guard and everyone else I ran into on my way in. Like usual, I wore slightly baggy clothes, so it's still difficult to see how much more muscular I was from the gym. I intentionally came in late, so I'd have an excuse to stay late and be one of the last employees to leave. On his way out, my supervisor told me to take as long as I needed, but to ask the security guard for an escort to my car in the attached parking garage. While having absolutely no intention of interacting with the security guard a second longer than necessary, I smiled and nodded. Anything to get some alone time with that tall, dark, and expensive server. Actually, the server was only 2 feet tall, but it was still a tight fit into my gym bag. The server weighed 46 pounds, but I was still able to mime like the bag weighed nothing at all in my right arm. For a little while at least. So I strode out of the office, swinging essentially $2 million around like it was nothing. I would bring it back on Monday morning while acting like I was there for an impatient client. There were cameras in every hall, and if something went wrong, I was hoping my charade would lessen the suspicion on me. There were also cameras in the elevator, but I wanted to limit my exposure to them, so I made a decision to take a little longer path and use the camera-less stairs. A decision I would soon regret. I mean, you already know I didn't get away with it. Otherwise, if I still had a reason to post this, I would have started with, "I'm having a lovely time in a country far away." However, I really don't know how it all went wrong. Everything seemed fine at first. The stairwell was just the same as it had always been. I could normally make this trip within a minute, easily. But it was impossible to fly down the steps as fast as I would have liked, lugging around that server. At least I didn't have to pretend my bag was light in there. That helped ease the load enough. I started imagining exactly what I'd do with the money as I descended floor after floor. Suddenly, a door opened high above me. I literally felt a tingle up my spine, but I was far enough down already that I felt safe from discovery. Still, I increased my speed even more. All I focused on for a few minutes was my footing. The last thing I wanted to do was trip and drop my retirement fund. But soon I found myself tired and confused. I made it down to the next landing and paused to look at the floor number. I really thought I would have been at the bottom by now. Instead, I found the space next to the door empty. Normally, a small plaque in that space would tell me what floor I was on. I tried the door, only to find that it was locked. That wasn't unusual since most of the stairwell doors were meant to allow a one-way access to the floor. But I was a little spooked. I thought I had just been rattled and not paying enough attention because looking down the stairwell showed several more floors to go to before reaching the bottom. There was nothing else to do but continue down because I could still hear someone from above stomping down the stairs. I couldn't tell if they sounded closer or farther than when I first heard them, but there was definitely 2 or more floors between us, so I thought it would be impossible for them to catch up to me. So down I went. Down and down. Faster and faster. I started jumping down the last 3 steps, even though it seemed to put a lot of strain on the handle of my gym bag. At this point, I couldn't deny that something was impossibly wrong. I had started counting the floors myself and breezed through 10 of them already. Yet there was still a number of floors below me. I gave up and decided to let whoever was above me catch up. They would have realized something was wrong too, and we could at least tackle this conundrum together. I stopped and used breathing techniques to try and slow my rapid heart rate. I needed to calm down to lie effectively, and I would need to keep up my masquerade of having a light bag. However, as I stopped and listened again, I didn't hear the same kind of stomping. At some point, the heavy footsteps had become more numerous, skittering. It honestly sounded like some kind of giant centipede was now rushing down the stairs. Whatever it was, I could not meet it. I fled in terror and found adrenaline carrying me and the bag down the stairs even faster than before. But they would not end. Eventually, even fear turned to frustration. Before I could lose all hope, though, something changed. I rounded a corner to find the next staircase was dark. All the remaining floors had their lights off. I didn't hesitate, though. Any change was welcome at this point. I kept descending. Though, I had to slow down in the dark. I had a lot of extra weight that was throwing me off. I could hear the dozens of legs above me, definitely closer now than ever before. But whatever was going on, I hoped this change of my environment meant I was at least near the bottom, and none of the first 3 floors would have locked doors. So I started trying the doors again as I passed. Locked. 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 The monstrous skittering now sounded like it was just 1 floor above me. Any moment now, it would be right behind me. Now far enough away from the lighted floors that it was getting really difficult to see anything, I was happy to find the next landing showed a clear outline of a door. The lights were on this floor. I tried to open the door and was surprised it actually worked. The door swung open easily, but I did get surprised in the end. I was actually shocked to find no light but darkness behind this door. The hairs on my arms and neck stood straight up. Every part of my brain screamed danger. Even so, I took a step towards the darkness. I'm not sure why. This wasn't right. This wasn't possible, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. But then I took another step. The darkness was so black that the rest of the stairwell suddenly seemed bright by comparison. I knew that darkness would swallow me whole. No trace would ever be found of me again. I took another step. Maybe it was the subconscious flight response to the now thunderous sounds of the monster above. Only a second had passed since I reached this landing, but time itself seemed to give up in the face of this unknowable danger. It was right then that my grip failed me. I dropped the server, and its echoing clanging sound snapped me out of my trance, and I was able to tear my eyes from the darkness and slam that door. Instead, I grabbed the bag with my left arm to give my right arm a break and took a long step to the top of the staircase. My lead foot awkwardly missed the step. I fell. I dropped the server again, this time on purpose. I hoped it would be better off fending for itself while I completed my fall. I was right. Falling down a staircase looks like so much fun in those slapstick comedies. In real life, not so much. My whole body was battered by sharp wedges as I ragdolled down to the next landing. I tried to stand immediately, but my ankle was broken. Due to the difficulty I had while breathing, I also knew several of my ribs were busted. I wasn't going anywhere. The skittering never stopped getting closer. I could just start to see something wriggling, like a dozen feelers, and what could have been a head turned the corner. Before I could get any more details, the door to this landing opened. Light poured into the stairwell and illuminated just my dropped gym bag on the second stair down. No monster, no supernatural darkness. My rescuers ended up being cops. They swarmed to the stairwell and recovered my gym bag first before tending to me. I received a temporary splint over my foot, tape over my ribs, and handcuffs over my wrists. Later on, the court-ordered psychologist would determine that I had a breakdown due to extreme guilt. This resulted in an intense hallucination where my perception of time was skewed. I went along with that explanation at the time because it helped me get a reduced sentence, but I've never experienced such a real hallucination before. Not that I have any better idea what happened. I've gone down those stairs hundreds of times over the 5 years I've worked in that building, and I know it wasn't like some kind of supernatural karma. It turns out that the buyers were undercover cops the whole time. From then on, I was going to be caught no matter which route I took. Either way, I hope nothing like that ever happens to me again. One funny thing that no one, not even the most cynical of cops, could explain was how fast I actually made it down the stairs. Their commander ordered a team of cops to clear the stairwell as soon as he received my text message, which was immediately after I had sent it. So from my perspective, I should have been on the 8th floor, but they opened the stairwell door at once and found me laying there all twisted up. Oh, and my supervisor also vanished that day. The cops investigated thoroughly because I could never convince them he wasn't in on my plan, but no trace was ever found. But the recorded CCTV footage showed that he took the stairs too.